is going to kick things off today and tell us a little bit about the variety of crowdsourcing implementations and machine learning and the business applications that they entail. Olga is the CEO of Toloka, which, for those of you who are uninitiated, is a very big crowdsourcing platform with over 9 million registered performers. Olga was earlier responsible for providing human-labeled data for all the AI projects that existed at Yandex. Now Olga is, of course, developing Toloka, which is this global crowdsourcing platform, as I said, for engineers that allows to integrate both data labeling as well as other data labeling tasks into continuous processes of the machine learning pipelines, if I understand correctly. Olga is a graduate, who's a graduate from the St. Petersburg State University as a specialist in mathematical methods and modeling and economics. She's also a co-author of several research papers and tutorials at top-tier conferences like SIG-IR, CBPR, KDD, Wisdom, and SIGMOD, to name a few. She also led, more recently, a panel discussion at the Crowd Science workshop at NeurIPS. So it's a pleasure to have you here with us, Olga, today. And I'd like to welcome you. And please take it away.
I didn't know you're going to read such a long list. I would make it shorter. Sorry for that. Okay, so hi everyone. It was really nice being here. Let me start sharing my presentation. So here it is. Yeah, hi everyone, and thanks for the great introduction. So I would not repeat anything about myself. Right now, I'm developing the crowdsourcing platform Toloka, and for the previous kind of 10 years, I've been working for Yandex, which is sometimes called the Silicon Valley of Russia. It's an internet giant which provides a huge variety of different products, starting from internet search and ending up with the self-driving cars and whatnot. But of course, all of them are united by the fact that all the products are driven by the machine learning, and hence all of these products require some data to train on. And during our experience of these years, we have collected quite a huge gallery of different use cases of real industrial application and implementation of the crowdsourcing, which I would like to share with you today. So I'm sure that this audience is quite familiar with what the crowdsourcing is, so I will not stop there. I would just emphasize that Toloka is the name of our crowdsourcing platform. It's developing very fast, as it's already have been mentioned. We have more than 9 million performers, we call them Talokers, registered on the platform, and they are distributed all over the world, and we are expanding to have more and more countries represented on our map. And those people every day provide really huge amounts of data labeling. Like right now, every day we have more than 40,000 people who perform tasks and get paid for them. They choose from more than 600 different projects of different requesters. And their whole total production allows requesters to collect more than 15 million labels produced every day. And the major ideology of our platform is that we treat, in general, the data labeling as not a people management, but rather as an engineering task. When there are lots of people from whom you require minimal effort, and you deal with their collective wisdom as with, I would say, yet another computing cluster. And using the API, you create automated pipelines, making use of those irregular efforts of millions of people. And of course, it may only work effective if there is a whole bunch of quality control measures and techniques which are developed and constantly being improved in Toloka platform, starting from the way how you select performers, either by age or gender or some other specific signs or by their skills or something else, then how you motivate and train them in order to motivate people try harder and get better reward for better results. Then the whole bunch of project level quality controls and system level aggregation techniques for aggregating raw results and optimal matching of requesters, tasks, and the experts, and etc. So that was a brief introduction about the platform, and it is being used for a large variety of the use cases, which I would like to share with you, just to show you, to illustrate the variety of possibilities and opportunities which the crowdsourcing opens to either research or the business. In general, as I mentioned, there are more than 600 active projects every day. So there can be many different ways of how to cluster those 600 projects into different types. I tried to cluster them into such 4 types, like gathering of content, data annotation, business decision making, and generation of content. And also, in the end, we'll speak about some more sophisticated use cases of implementing crowdsourcing. So let's start with gathering of content. One of quite popular use cases among our requesters right now is collecting audio recordings. For example, if you have a voice assistant which needs to activate when some activation phrase was spoken by a customer, so to teach your assistant to activate correctly, what you need to do the first is to collect a large number of such voice recordings provided by different people in different environments, speaking different voices with different accents, etc. So in crowdsourcing, it is made very easily. There is a very small pipeline of several tasks. Like at first, you ask a person to provide a very small and trivial task. Please record on your mobile device some phrase. For example, say, "Hey, Alisa." Then there is another task when other performers are asked to listen to this phrase and validate that it has been spoken correctly. And then if everything was done correctly, then the first task is accepted. If no, it is rejected and sent to other people to do it once again. And thus you can do this simultaneously by thousands of people. And using such a small pipeline, the requester gets the final results of thousands of audio recordings within very short time, within literally several hours. Then one of my favorite use cases of using the crowdsourcing is the spatial crowdsourcing, which is not maybe that popular in among other crowdsourcing platforms. The idea is that people are asked to perform some task offline. For example, come to a certain location and perform some action there. Most usually, the action is to take a photo. For example, this is quite often used by some requesters who need to actualize the information about the maps, about organizations on the maps. For example, people are asked to come to a certain location, like to the address of some restaurant or something, and asked to take a photo of the organization there. Quite often this is, and later this information from the photo is processed in a specific way, and thus you obtain the updated information about the organization. And actually, quite often, surprisingly, this is the only way to collect some information about offline organizations. Well, no, not everything is yet digitalized and not all the information is yet online. And in some cases, the only way to obtain this information is literally to go by foot to a certain location and verify it. The other example is verification of, for example, prices for certain goods inside the shops, which is also quite effectively being performed using the crowdsourcing, following the same logic. This is, for example, how it looks like for the performer on our mobile app. Like, a person looks at the map, there are lots of different tasks available. The Taloka chooses some tasks near himself or herself, and then it is required to take a photo, and the system automatically matches the geolocation of the expected location and the person. And if those locations do not match, the system deactivates this task and does not allow to perform it. Uh, and in general, such business logic is achieved by almost following pipeline, where there are people who come to a certain location and take photos. Then there is automatization, which automatically verifies the GPS coordinates and etc. Then there are other people who look at the taken photo and extract some needed information from that. Yet again, because not everything can be extracted using the computer vision algorithms automatically, quite often the majority of information still can only be obtained using the help of the people. And finally, thus after having those steps proceeded, you obtain a photo of some place, for example, organization, and the full range of needed information about that. But of course, it's not only about the offline, it's quite often the use case in the online to search for some objects in the internet. It may sound a little bit surprising at the beginning because there are so many web crawlers and parsers which can do it automatically. But the truth is that quite often, if you use some automated parsers, they would catch actually the content which would differ from what the real person sees. When the human, for example, goes to a certain web page, he or she would see a different content rather than would be returned to a robot. So quite often the only way to really validate and obtain some information from the internet is also to ask people to do that. Then there is a whole bunch of use cases related to facts extraction. For example, when the crowd performers are asked to look at some piece of text and extract some facts like date of birth, I don't know, profession, something else, from this piece of text. Usually, these are the tasks related to semantic search, and this data is used for training and validating the quality of automated algorithms that would later be used in the production. Uh, then, speaking about other set of use cases of implementation of the crowdsourcing, we would pass to the classical data annotation. Those of you who are dealing with the machine learning are most probably familiar with the majority of such use cases. These are the different cases of objects classification or text classification or audio transcription or some object segmentation for the computer vision, and etc. Here are some figures which represent the real use cases of, for example, how 1,000 photos can be classified within 15 minutes using the crowdsourcing. Yeah, as I have mentioned, quite an often use case relates to audio transcription when people are asked to listen to a short piece of audio and then transcribe it into the text, and then it is also verified by another step of the crowdsourcing pipeline to finally obtain the final result of speech translated to text. Then there is a lot variety of NLP related tasks, or like named entity recognition and some others related to linguistics research. Then, due to the fact that on Taloka there are many performers from different countries and hence speaking different languages, one of the popular tasks that we observe is the validation of auto-translate, when people are asked to look at the phrase and compare several options of automated translation for the same phrase and choose the best one. This is used usually for validation and building some metrics of the quality of auto-translate products. Another example, coming to a totally different sphere of the use cases, is related to moderation of user-generated content, and actually moderation in general, because the internet is growing and growing, and it is full of content, and finally this content all requires to be moderated, and the crowdsourcing is a very powerful tool for very speedy and high quality moderation of the content, due to the fact that there are, at every moment of time, there are thousands of people available to perform a very short task like this one, like for example to moderate the review on a restaurant. Of course, right now with the technologies of computer vision developing for automotive industries and for the others, there's a lot of different use cases of using crowdsourcing for object segmentation in 2D and 3D and many, many others. One of the cool examples that we recently had on our platform, and I really liked the idea, was spotting the highlights on the video when talkers were asked to watch some video and mark the highlight moments there. This content is needed for some of the services providing video content to have them their like video production highlighted with some specific moments highlighted by people. And this is personally for me one of the most interesting use cases, because I myself started to work in a search team, and this is where we started the whole thing of human labeling, was the search and search relevance evaluation. And still, I believe that this is one of the most sophisticated and most difficult tasks for the crowdsourcing, not because of the design of the setup, but because usually the use cases with which people are forced to meet during the search relevance evaluations are very, very different and quite often very, very difficult. So there is a very untrivial task of maintaining constantly high level of quality of such labeling, but this process is already being used in the industrial usage for many years. So one of the most important questions when we speak about the search relevance evaluation is actually how to find experts in a particular domain for them to evaluate the relevance of such search results. And luckily, the fact that in the crowdsourcing there are so many performers, it is possible to choose among those millions of performers to find and select those who demonstrate the good level of expertise in the needed domain. This is what is done on the one side, and on the other side, there is a need to classify search queries with which people would be dealing with by specific domain or expertise, and then match those two sides. And I would say that this is, probably one of the most sophisticated pipelines in the crowdsourcing that I have seen in my life. Of course, here it is much simplified, but the idea is, yes, that you select some specialists, you let them evaluate some search queries, then you have a specific loop when people are asked to explain their labels, and then those explanations are being verified, and then after the set of several levels of verifications, the label is considered to be the final one. Then much easier and probably much more fancy examples of using the crowdsourcing is product decision making. For example, one of the most popular use cases that we see is the side-by-side, because quite often it is quite hard to make a formal task for the person to answer some set of questions or something, but it's quite easy to ask a person to look at several objects and decide which one he or she likes the most. And the objects can be very different. It can be logos, some backgrounds, some images, some version of design, whatever it is. If you ask many people, like thousands of people, to vote either left or right, by the end you get a very powerful tool of digitalizing some subjective estimations on the appearance of certain objects. And the last part is the generation of content. As I see now, looking at how different requesters operate on Toloka platform, this is the topic which is now gaining popularity. These are different methods of how to use crowdsourcing to generate different types of content. For example, one of the possible implementations is the generation of ads when people are asked to look at a certain site and write some short phrases describing this site or advertising this site. And in general, this is a part of a more of a broader, I would say, set of tasks, which I would call like solving a more high-level tasks using the crowd, because in general, the same approach of decomposing the task into several simple steps and delegating them to the crowd can be used not only for some trivial tasks of data labeling, but also for solving some more difficult business cases. It's always turns into such a pyramid where at the very bottom there is some automation, then there is the crowd, then there are a few experts who could provide some benchmarks or write the instructions for the crowd or something else. And on the top of this pyramid, there is an engineer who actually designs all the pipeline of the multi-steps pipeline to make it work effectively and be resistant to mistakes of single performers. So one of the use cases that I like, because it is very popular right now and is widely used in the real industry production, is the moderation of content, following the logic of human in the loop, when at first there is some automated classifier working, and in case it returns low confidence level, and the task is sent to the crowd, as I have mentioned, because there are so many people available at every moment of time. It really takes several minutes to provide the verdict. And in some cases, even if the crowd performers are not confident enough in their verdict, the task is being sent to the second line, to this super highly trained expert. And finally, after the whole loop, we get the final result, like the verdict of the moderation. Or one of the cool examples is the testing of software or the quality assurance, when people are asked to actually do the manual testing of some programs or something, or when they are asked to follow a set of steps and report if they see some unexpected behavior of the tool or of the product. Why is it popular within the crowdsourcing? Because when you have those millions of performers, they all have different devices which they're using. They all have different speed of internet they are living with. They speak different languages and have different localizations of their products on their devices. So such approach allows you to have a really large variety of different environments tested in a very short time. I think I would skip this quite complicated scheme of how the text generation may be applied using the crowdsourcing, but the idea is actually the same. When you ask several people to compose some text according to the instructions. Then you filter and verify every piece of text by another step of verification. Then you vote for the best pieces of text using the side-by-side, and then finally you get the very best result, which you can use later in production. And finally, some words that I would like to share with this audience. First of all, that we are always happy to see new requesters on the platform, and this is the promo code. If you wish to try, you can use it later. I think we will share this presentation, so you will find the promo codes there. And since we are participating in a scientific event, I would like to share that the news that we recently have launched the grants program for those researchers who are interested in providing research on the topics of the crowdsourcing or using the crowdsourcing. Please apply. We can sponsor such research and would be happy to help you. And in general, we are now supporting and leading what we call the Crowd Science Initiative. This is an initiative aimed to popularize the crowdsourcing and make it a really field of science, application of science. We have a set of regular seminars about the crowdsourcing. We participate at the world leading conferences. We would soon launch a contest, and we would be happy if you join our community if you are interested in this topic. I think this is all what I wanted to share with you. Thank you so much.